Welcome to Women Rise. I'm Councilmember Jane Poston. Today we are taking on a very big topic, housing. Housing costs are rising across the country and Chandler is no different. So today we're going to be taking a look at the different housing sectors and what the responses from the city and the private sector are having. So we're going to discuss the big picture housing plan as well that's currently underway right here in the city of Chandler. So today I have three women with me that are experts in their field, and they're going to talk about housing and what's happening here in Chandler. I'd like to introduce all of you first, and then we'll jump into the questions. So beginning, we have Sharon Younger. Sharon is a member of our Housing and Human Relations Commission, or Human Services Commission, correct? Yes. And she also owns her own real estate brokerage here in Chandler. Sharon's going to be telling us about what she sees for people trying to buy a home and what those obstacles are. And I'm sure you have a lot to say about that. Next, my other guest is Katie Martin. She's administrator of home improvements at FSL Home Improvements. Katie is going to be explaining what her organization does and what you're doing to keep seniors in their homes, which is incredibly important. And then finally, we have our very own Leah Powell, who is our Director of Neighborhood Services, or Neighborhood Resource Director. She's going to give us a big picture overview of housing and what the city's doing to address the needs of our most vulnerable populations. So Leah, I'm going to start with you. Let's get it going with the easiest question today. Tell us about affordable housing.
Yes.
No, affordable housing is what we're hearing about the most. How critical of an issue is that?
Yes, it is absolutely the issue that we are hearing about the most. And I think there's a few things that we need to make sure people understand. One of the things is we hear the terms affordable housing and workforce housing used interchangeably, and that's not exactly the case. Affordable housing is subsidized, and typically that's subsidized by government funding, and we'll go into that in a little bit more. Workforce housing is housing that's going to be kept affordable for somebody, but not necessarily subsidized. So as the city, we are taking a comprehensive look at all types of housing from one end of the spectrum to the other. We do a needs assessment that we've been updating every few years, and that assessment is assessing the number of units that we have and that we need, from the affordable housing all the way up to the highest end of housing here in Chandler, both for renters and for home ownership. The city itself has been involved in the affordable housing since 1972. We became a public housing authority, and at that time, we built 200 units. We have 5 multifamily sites. One of them is designated for seniors. And then in addition to that, we have 103 scattered sites. We also administer housing choice vouchers, also known as Section 8, and some other specialty vouchers. So that's part of the role that the city is playing in addressing affordable housing, and really have been for over 50 years.
Well, I appreciate that explanation because I think there's a difference. People hear affordable housing and they maybe confuse it with housing that I can afford. And that's different. When we talk about affordable housing here in government, we think of something very specific. So I know that you with Neighborhood Services put together a nice video with the video department that would explain those programs. So we'd like to go ahead and just watch those now.
Sounds great.
Housing is a priority for everyone, but let's get real. Even understanding the basic terms of housing assistance can seem mystifying, but it doesn't have to be. Here's a breakdown on 3 terms. Let's start with public housing. These government-owned apartment buildings or single-family homes provide a decent and affordable option for low-income individuals who can't afford housing. The families pay 30% of their income for rent. Next, let's look at housing choice vouchers, also known as Section 8. It helps people with low-income rent in the private market with the freedom to choose where they want to live. The family pays 30% of their income for rent, while the remaining portion is covered through the housing choice voucher. Finally, we have affordable housing. These units are typically owned by nonprofit organizations. The rent is fixed at a certain price below market rates and within the means of people with low to moderate incomes. Affordable housing is made possible by tax incentives, grants, low-interest loans, and partnerships with nonprofits. Through these options, we ensure everyone has a place to call home, and we create stronger, more inclusive communities where everyone can thrive.
So I think that video is very helpful for people to understand. But one project that we have going that we're very proud of in Chandler is the Villas at McQueen. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, we broke ground on Villas on McQueen back on June 27th, so just a couple of months ago. So the Housing and Urban Development Department, HUD, has produced this product called RAD. rental assistance demonstration project. So what it basically means is public housing authorities like Chandler that have outdated housing are able to go ahead and transition that into a voucher program. What that simplified means is that we are going to go ahead and transform our current housing that's over 50 years and build new housing. So our residents will be transferred into those new units, and they're going to get energy efficient units, brand new, state-of-the-art, safe units, and then it also allows us the opportunity to add additional affordable units.
So we'll be serving more people.
We will. And the other great thing about this is it's not reliant on strictly government funding. And I think that's an important piece. When you convert into this RAD product, it's a public-private partnership. So we are working with a private development company. We have LIHTC funding, which is low-income housing tax credit. So it diversifies the funding base, and it doesn't make the project reliant solely on government funding. And I think that's really beneficial for the sustainability of it.
And this particular project is for seniors and veterans, correct?
Yes, we are moving 2 of our locations. We have 2 of our family sites that will move into it. And then we put a preference for seniors and veterans and people with disabilities. We have a senior site, as I said before, but we also have seniors that are living in our family sites. Sometimes that's because that's where they were able to find a 1-bedroom, but sometimes and many times we have seniors that may be taking care of grandchildren. And so they need a family site, even though they do qualify as seniors as well.
Fantastic. Okay, we're going to come back to you later. This is great stuff, but we need to get to our other guests. And Katie, you are up. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Poston. I'm so glad to be here.
Excellent. Can you just start? I mean, obviously seniors are very important, and it's important to protect them. They are one of our vulnerable populations. Tell me a little bit about what your organization does.
Yes, FSL Home Improvements does a lot of services for the community, and Chandler residents are a beneficiary of several of the programs. We have a housing rehab program that we work with the City of Chandler directly. So Chandler does the intake, and then we do the construction side of those repairs. And that program is so valuable and can keep seniors living in their homes longer and more comfortable with repairs like electrical and plumbing, roofing, air conditioning, accessibility modifications, really amazing repairs that we can do that will allow seniors to live in their home longer. We also provide weatherization services to the Chandler community. We have a contract with the state of Arizona where we do energy audits for eligible households. A lot of them are seniors. They are on Social Security, and they meet the income criteria for the weatherization program. So we go into the homes and inspect the homes and see what kind of work needs to be done. Typically, most homes are getting insulation, sunscreens, duct sealing, air conditioning repairs or replacements, water heaters, sometimes appliances. And these repairs are going to save the owners on their electric bill, anywhere from $300 annually to $3,000 annually. It just depends on the home. So in saving seniors on their utility bills, that also allows them to stay in their home more comfortably, safely, and then allows those extra dollars to go in their pocket, and they can use it for, medication or food or whatever they need to spend that money on. So we're putting money back in the senior's pocket, and I know that their budgets are already very stretched.
They're typically on a fixed income, so
Yes.
there's not a whole lot of extra expendable income in the first place.
Correct.
Is this housing crunch specifically difficult on the senior population?
I think there's a lot of factors that affect seniors, seniors that are in rentals. If their rent increases and they're on a fixed budget, that can absolutely affect them and their budget. If rents go up in mobile home parks, let's say, that can definitely affect their bottom line. And if they're living at home, they can't repair their home or maintain it in some cases because construction costs are so high now. They can't repair those, the air conditioner or the
With
roof.
our heat, you've got to have that.
You have to have air
It's
conditioning.
dangerous. It's very
Absolutely.
dangerous, especially for our senior population.
Absolutely. And I have a testimony that I did want to share. I recently got to interview, I had the privilege to interview a recipient of our program. And she had mentioned that she got a repair quote for her air conditioning system, and it was anywhere between $15,000 and $20,000. And she contemplated selling her house. She could not afford it, and she said, "I'm going to sell." And then she heard about our program, and so we were able to replace the air conditioner for her at no cost, and she stayed in her home. So that's really a testimony to affordable housing is so important, and so are these other programs. They really do help seniors stay in their home.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Well,
Yes.
congratulations. That's a great success story. So, okay, so we'll get you a chance to talk a little more too. That is fantastic. Thank you so much, Sharon. Boy, you're wearing kind of two hats working with our housing commission. But in terms of real estate, we kind of mentioned it before. Affordable housing is one thing. Housing people can afford is very, very different. What does it look like out there in the private sector as people are looking for homes, and maybe specifically those first-time home buyers?
Yeah, so Chandler is in a seller's market right now. Year over year, average sales price appreciation is 7% for Chandler, whereas the Valley as a whole is 3%. Our median annual sales price is $537,000 versus the Valley-wide, which is about $450,000. Our average days on market in Chandler sits right about 44 days before a home for sale goes to contract, whereas in the Valley as a whole, they're looking at 66 days. And our supply right now, our months of supply in Chandler is 2 months versus over 3 months for the Valley as a whole. So it's very clear that inventory is a huge issue. And it's not just Chandler, it's nationwide. We've just underbuilt diverse housing stock for far too long, and we're really paying the price now. And Chandler has a very unique set of problems, or challenges, let's say, that's adding to our inventory crush, which obviously plays into affordability. We're near build out. Mm-hmm. Arizona as a whole ranks fourth in net positive migration. And a lot of those people that are moving to Arizona look at Chandler and say, this is just where we want to be. Of course. We've got a great employment base. We've got a high quality of life between our schools and our parks and recreation, public safety, and financial management. Thank you, Councilwoman Poston. And then we also have some demographic pressures as well. The millennial generation is now overtaking the baby boom generation, and right at their heels is Generation Z. And we're anticipating over the next 10 years for that to be creating a lot of pressure on the housing demand.
We're almost the victim of our own success.
Thank you. Those were my next words. We are a victim of our own success. And then we have one other issue that hopefully is very temporary, and that's the lock-in effect. So people who have purchased homes in the last few years that were able to score those 2.5% to 3.5% interest rates that they love so much, they may need to or want to sell their home, but they're not. They're staying on the sidelines because they just don't want to trade those low interest rates for the 7s and 8s that we've been seeing.
Just doesn't pencil.
Yeah, exactly. And so we have seen a slowdown across the Valley, which in a sense, okay, let's kind of take a breath and kind of regroup a little bit. And so we've had the lowest number of sales in Chandler and across the Valley for several years. And so we are anticipating a shift here. So I'm sure a lot of you have heard about the decrease in interest rates.
Yes.
And there's a lot of confidence out there that will happen in September. And so once that takes hold, we should start seeing the picture, the affordability picture, not your affordability, my affordability. We should start seeing that take a different shape in that we will have more demand. Once the interest rates go down, I anticipate that we are going to see a real spike in demand. And hopefully we'll have the sellers who now that gap in interest rate is not so much. And so they may be more willing to put their homes on the market, and we'll have the inventory to meet the demand. I can tell you just in my practice, last week we did see a decrease in interest rates, and I definitely saw an uptick in activity.
Well, that's good. We like to hear that for our business owners too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, any advice for those first-time home buyers?
So first-time home buyers, obviously they have just been so challenged. Post-pandemic, we had this massive degree of demand, and at that point in time, they just couldn't compete. A lot of them just couldn't compete with the money that was coming in from out of state. And so, they really struggled. And then in the middle of 2022, as interest rates began to rise, now they're looking at, and they're trying to contend with high appreciation, high interest rates, and low inventory. So they have really struggled. There have been, I have worked with many first-time home buyers despite these conditions. They are people who we're able to, let's say, creatively negotiate so that their monthly payments are not astronomical. A lot of first-time home buyers are getting help from parents. I'm seeing a lot of that in my practice. And then we are starting to see wage growth outpace inflation, which is a really good sign for
that's
first-time home buyers.
fantastic.
Yes, that's kind of what we want to see.
Right.
And then the other comment I want to make on that is just to bust the myth of 20% down. You know, a lot of first-time home buyers are under the impression that they have to save 20%, a 20% down payment in order to achieve homeownership. And the bulk of my first-time home buyers are bringing in 3 to 3.5%, depending on the loan program. So it may be more achievable than people think.
Well, I love to hear that because, I mean, that's known as the American dream, that home ownership. That's how people build wealth in our country.
Exactly.
And we don't want an entire generation missing out on that.
That's right. The wealth gap between renters and homeowners is very substantial.
So, one final question on the Housing Commission. So, since you wear both hats today,
Yeah.
tell us just briefly, you know, what kind of topics are you dealing with? All of these topics on that commission? What's the big conversation there?
Yeah. So the things that we've been focused on, and Leah alluded to it earlier, is the community needs assessment it has really given us some direction in terms of where funds need to go, where is the greatest need, and so we're in the process of revamping the allotment process and making sure that those funds are getting to organizations like FSL. So that's one big push that we're working on. And then repositioning some of the public housing assets that we have by modifying them. Again, Leah alluded to that, doing modifications and adding to our public housing stock so that we do have more affordable housing for the Chandler community.
That is fantastic. And there are a lot of pieces to this puzzle on solving this problem. And there's no one thing that we're going to do that will solve everything, which brings us to our housing plan. And Leah, you and I started talking about this a few months ago. It was first when I had been approached by a community group that asked about putting small housing on faith-based properties. And you had said that's maybe even a positive solution that we could come up with. But we're looking at this big housing plan to give that umbrella for all of these great ideas, all of the things that can assist with housing in Chandler. So can you just give us an overview of what that approach is and where we are for that?
Sure. It's, as you said, what we are looking at is a comprehensive housing plan. And I think that's really important for people to understand. As a city, we are not just looking at affordable housing because we have a public housing authority, but we have to look at bringing a diverse base of housing in for diverse income for all ages. A senior's needs for housing may be very different than a family's need for housing. So we're looking at size, cost, it's all of it combined. So with the comprehensive housing strategy, it will allow us to take some of the data that we've been collecting over the last few years of our housing needs assessment and really put that data to work. And also we want to look for innovation. Chandler prides itself on being an innovative community. So what are some of the new products that are out there? What are some of the new approaches? We want to make sure that we're taking all of that into consideration. It's also extremely important to think about where housing is going, what types of housing are going in different areas. So the comprehensive housing strategy will roll up into the general plan that we're getting ready to kick off at the same time.
Yes.
And
we love our plans here in Chandler, but it
do.
really gives us a great outline and a direction to follow as
Absolutely.
a community.
It's extremely important to do that because you might see the pressure to build, let's say 400 units, 500 units, even 200 units in a certain location, but we have to make sure the infrastructure is there. And that's extremely important for a city to really take a look at the comprehensive plan and the general plan to make sure the right type of housing going in the right place and that we can support it from an infrastructure standpoint. And that's why we have things like bonds to continue to update our infrastructure and make sure that we support the future as we build out, but also build up.
Okay. And council's been taking a look at our city codes to incentivize development. We've approved accessory dwelling units. Even the one that I'm kind of excited about is the container housing. We haven't seen that yet, but just trying to be creative, be flexible. Any other creative ideas out there that we're taking a look at?
Yes, I think it's important to look at what are starter homes, looking at home buyers, first-time home buyers. It may not be the traditional home that many of us might have started with. So one of the things that we're looking at are the micro estates. We have a community land trust where the land stays as part of the community land trust. We've had that actually since 2009. And then the structure is sold to the family. We want to look at micro estates. Newtown Community CDC is the one that we partnered with. Community Development Corporation, on building our community land trust here in Chandler, they also have a micro estate product that they did in Tempe, for example. So what does that look like? Are there other new types of starter homes that we can attract with the development community to be able to give people their first time home? Also, what are the building products out there? We're looking for energy efficiency in building products, and there's new products that are coming on the market all the time, or even products that have been around for a while but maybe weren't as popular in the past, but now are becoming a little more mainstream, a little more attainable.
A little more cost effective?
Cost effective for sure. I think the challenge with construction materials just continuing to rise is really kind of opening the door for innovation. And so we'll be really entertaining all of those ideas.
Okay. And then we'll be looking for broad community input on this plan. Can you just tell me a little bit about that and what the process is? It'll take a little bit of time, but it's underway already.
Yes, we are in the process of selecting our consultant, and we'll be bringing that to council for approval. And with that, then we will kick off at the first of 2025 a process where we'll be involving the community. So we'll work with the consultant. We'll have a stakeholders group that's been identified and start working with the consultant even prior to that. But then come January, we'll be going out for community input, gathering all of that. That will come into the form of a plan, which will come back to the mayor and council for approval, and then roll up into the general plan, as we said. So
which is great, because we're starting to look at the general plan too. All of these things will come together at the right time.
Yes, and it's really important that we do get that community input.
Thank you.
Yes, I want to stress that.
I wanted to emphasize that
Yes.
as well. The community will have their chance to voice their opinion in what we want to see here in Chandler.
Yes, and as every 5 years, we do a consolidated plan for our community development block grant, and in that is also a community survey and a housing needs assessment. So there is even that opportunity in the 5-year plan, as well as annually with our annual CDBG plan. So I just would encourage our residents to continue to watch the marketing, the social media, because we always put those questions out to the public.
Excellent. Well, thank you. And thank you. That's great. And I am hoping both of our guests will be involved in some of that planning as well. But I did want to open it up. Is there anything maybe I should have asked that you'd like to add, or anybody'd like to comment on somebody else's programs or comments?
Well, I'm thrilled to hear Leah talking about, alternative types of homes, particularly for first-time home buyers, because what we're seeing is, obviously when interest rates come down, affordability will be more within their grasp. But I think first-time home buyers have become and need to become more realistic about what that first home looks like. And so to have alternatives is just amazing. And the best thing I can ever hear from a first-time home buyer is, I'll be seeing you in 5 years when I buy my next home, but I'm going to keep this one as an investment property. They get that having real estate as a part of their wealth portfolio is going to really move the ball forward for them. And so this could make it way more possible for them. I love that.
Oh, we love to hear that. Thank you. Katie, anything that you'd like to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I really love what Leah was saying about energy efficiency and incorporating that into the new housing stock that you guys are going to put out there. It's so important. And saving energy for everybody is going to be a win-win, and keep their costs low and have an energy efficient and safe and healthy home and good indoor air quality. Those are the kind of things that excite me. I know that's not for everyone, but
it should be. It's fantastic.
I love what she was saying about the energy efficiency in these new builds.
Thank you. That's great. All right. Well, I just want to thank all of you for being here. Sharon Younger, Katie, Leah, thank you so much for coming on this today and sharing your areas of expertise. This is a big issue for both our country and for Chandler, and every little piece of the puzzle that contributes help, and you guys are doing an amazing job. So I really appreciate it. And so thank you again for coming on today, and thank you for joining us on Women Rise. I'm Councilmember Jane Poston. We'll see you next time.